So I want to be sure that I cover any questions that you guys have. So I thought the best way to do that would be to see if you have any questions at the front end of things that you came in here wondering or have been wondering this year about looking for a post-graduation job. And we can write those on the board, and then if I don't cover them during the presentation, then they'll be waiting for us at the end, and we'll make sure that we cover everything that you guys wanted to hear about. So are there any particular topics or questions that you have that you want to make sure that I address?
Not formulated.
All right, well, feel free to jot them down as I go through, or raise your hand as I go through. I don't like formal presentations. I like a lot of give and take a lot more. So feel free to interact with me throughout. So I think I've met most of you. I'm Elisa Laird-Metke, and I work in career services as a counselor focusing on 3Ls and recent grads. And I also work in student services half-time, so I have I may be the only person in the law school with two separate offices in 2 separate buildings. Oh, here's a sign-in sheet. We should pass this around. Starting with you. Thanks. So I was just asking for folks who just came in if there were any questions that you wanted me to be sure to specifically address. I'll take them now, and if not, then you can just raise your hand throughout. So what we want to talk about today is how to make your own transition from being a law student to being an attorney, and how to make sure that your job application materials and your presentation of yourself reflect that transition. So the goal is to change how employers see you. But it starts with changing how you see yourself. So you have to change your own idea of yourself as a student, and thinking about, oh, I shouldn't say this, I shouldn't do that, I'm just a student, and change it to, I'm an attorney, I have skills, I am capable of doing things, and projecting that confidence to employers, because they need to see that you have confidence in your own abilities as an attorney in order to hire you as an attorney to work for them. So what we're going to talk about today is there's a series of things that you can be doing now while you're still in school to be setting up the dominoes to help you out getting a job down the road. So you might end up with a job after the bar while you're in law school. You might be making steps toward that now, getting yourself ready, so that when you stop job hunting for 2 months to study for the bar, then you start up your job search again after the bar. You've already got things lined up, ready to go, so you're not starting from square one, from zero, after the bar exam. So that's just sort of the goal today, is to give you steps to do over the next few months. So this is how most of us think of job searches. We think of LCS Online, or Craigslist, or Monster, or wherever it is that you go online to look for jobs. And we think about sitting at the computer looking for jobs. Oh, I'm not qualified for that, not qualified, can't, oh, here's one, I'll apply to this. But the problem with looking for jobs this way, which is fine, and it's how a lot of people get jobs, but the problem with it is every job seeker in the market is looking at the same postings you are. And so I can tell you, as the recipient of resumes when I was an attorney, that we would get 100 postings in the first day from a Craigslist ad sometimes. That was a few years ago. I think now it's not as bad, but it was, there were a lot of people applying. And so we want to make sure that you all are getting access to other jobs. So the reality is that only 20% of jobs that people get, they get this way. So the other 80% are through this whole other sort of hidden job market that never shows up on Craigslist, never shows up on LCS Online. So how do you find those 80% of those jobs is what we're going to talk about today.
Are you going to say this?
So this is hard to read, and I apologize for that. This is on GGU's website. If you want to look at it, you can. It's there. This is, every year we are required to gather statistics on our graduates and where they end up working. We're working on gathering 2013 grad statistics right now, so this is the most recent data we have, which is 2012 graduates. So this is how many and the percentage of graduates got each kind of job. So let me highlight a few of these for you. So if we look at these two columns, this says job posting in CSO, that's career services online. These are the categories that apply to every law school. So career services online postings, or jobs posted online or in print. So that's going to be your Craigslist and Monster.com. 18% of GGU grads from 2012 got a job that way. If you add in the two lines above it, say job fair, consortia, fall on-campus interviews, and then down here is spring on-campus interviews, you add those in, that's another 5% or so, so maybe it's 23% if you count those as posted places. That could be PIPS day or on-campus interviews. So, you know, we're right around that 20% number here at Golden Gate, just like the rest of the country is. So what does that mean? Where are the other jobs coming from? So 12%, almost 12% of GGU grads from 2012 got a job as an attorney from someplace they had been working already. Probably when they were a summer associate somewhere, or you know, as a clerk during the school year somewhere, and they ended up getting hired on full-time there after graduation. 35% of that year's jobs went to people who had a referral of some kind of connection. So we're going to spend some time talking today about what you all can start doing now to create the connections to help you get a job. This is a lot of that hidden job market. Jobs that are never posted are this 12% or this 35%. Another 12%, what it says over here is self-initiated / letter. So this is reaching out to an employer yourself. So it's not, maybe it's an informational interview that turns into a job, or maybe it's you went to an event and met another attorney and they said, oh, we have an opening at our firm, would you like to interview? That kind of thing. So that's another 12%. And that's another part of the hidden job market where the jobs don't ever get posted. So this is another one I just want to call your attention to briefly before we move on. Only 24.6% of 2012 grads from GGU had their job before graduation. So if you don't have a job by May, by the time you graduate, you're in the vast majority. And in this market, in this day and age, it's really common for graduates to finish law school without having a job in hand. So don't stress if that's you. We'll definitely, we'll talk about that. Some people will have a job before graduation. A lot won't. You know, you can see here we've got about 38% get a job between graduation and getting bar results, and then another 38% after the bar is over, sometime later. The legal profession is one that requires a license to work for 90–95% of jobs. So it's really more common to wait till you have the license or about to have the license before you find a job. That's just the reality. So how do we find this 80% hidden job market? Well, so the first thing is to do research. Each different type of employer that you may be interested in has their own timeline of when they're doing their hiring. Courts, each court has a different timeline. If you are interested in working for one of the courts, then Suzanne Aronowitz is an expert on all judicial hirings. She could talk to you about which kinds of courts, federal, state, immigration, all the different subsets of courts, when they hire, who they're hiring, what their timetables are. We also have information at LCS about working for the PD or the DA and what their timetables are. They're different for different ones. Some are still hiring now, some open it up in the fall for hiring for post-bar. So there's all different timetables. There's also, you know, if you want to work for a big firm, they probably have done most of their hiring from their summer associates, but medium-sized firms and small firms tend to hire more when they have an opening. Someone leaves, the work expands and they realize we need more people to be working on the cases that we have. So those jobs come up just periodically. There's no real predicting them. So there's all kinds of timetables. Research, if you're interested in working in a particular one, what that is. Fellowships tend to come up now. Openings for fellowships that would be like a 1-year or 2-year post-bar fellowship. Often you don't have to have passed the bar to have a fellowship, so it's a great thing to get while you're waiting for bar results. So those tend to be advertised now, and those are not 100%, but a lot more of the exception to the 80-20 rule. A lot of fellowships are advertised, so a lot of them are on LCS Online right now. Different, other job boards come talk to me if you want to know more about that, and I can walk you through some of the places where you might look for those. So researching is certainly a big part of what you should be doing this semester before graduation. Figure out who your target job market is and when they hire, how they hire. So part of that research is also networking, contacts. So you want to be sure to stay in touch with the people that you have created relationships with already. So solidify your current contacts. So one great one is I apologize, this is terrible clip art. It's going to get worse before it gets better. So your professors. The professors who are here full-time at GGU are very well connected to the legal community in the Bay Area and sometimes in other cities as well. If you have a great relationship with a professor and they are impressed with you, I've seen you do good work in their class, there's a really good chance that they would be perfectly willing to be a reference, to provide your name if they hear about an opening, suggest you as a person that someone else may want to hire. So stay in touch with them, right? Around graduation or near the end of this semester, send an email to your professors. Hey, thank you so much. I learned so much from you. I just, want to let you know I'm going to be studying for the bar and then looking for a job this summer. If you have any contacts or suggestions for me, please pass them on. Professors love that stuff. They love helping students. That's why they're here. That's why they work here. So, and the adjunct professors who are only here teaching a certain night class, particularly in your 3rd year, you'll probably have met some of the adjunct professors who teach kind of specialized subject areas. They're full-time lawyers who just come here 1 night a week to teach a class. They're fully immersed in the legal field, and in the sub-area that they teach, if you're taking their class, you're probably interested in getting a job in that sub-area, or at least willing to take a job in that sub-area. So talk to the adjunct, make a good impression on them, chat them up after class. This works. They will remember you, and then when you're job hunting, if you put them down as a reference, there's a good chance that the person who's doing the hiring, who looks at your resume, knows that person. They've worked together, they've co-counseled a case or opposed each other on a case, who knows. But professors are a great way to stay in touch, or a great category of people to stay in touch with. So you should also solidify contacts with like your parents' friends, family friends, people you know, anyone who works. It doesn't matter if they're a lawyer or not. If they work at a company, it may have a legal department, and they may know folks in the legal department, or be able to pass your name on someone there. They may hear, oh, there's an opening at the legal department at this company. Or my friend is a lawyer and he said there's an opening at his firm. So, folks like that you maybe haven't been in touch with. Also, your classmates who graduated last year before, if you are in touch with any of them, maybe you were in a Pulsa with them, maybe they were your TA and you had a good rapport with them, reach out. Hey, I'm going to be job hunting. I heard you're working at whatever. Would love to stay in touch, and let me know if you hear any openings. Let me know if there's anyone you think I should talk to. I mean, super casual, really easy. You can basically paste the same email over and over again to a lot of people, but it will, definitely help you later. If you keep a list of them or folder all of those sent mails into a certain folder in your email, just some way to remember later who you talked to. Once you finish the bar and you're ready to start job hunting for real, you just go back and resend to all of them. Hey, remember I talked to you back in May, or I emailed back in May and let you know I'd be job hunting in July? Well, guess what? It's July. I'm ready to hit the ground. If you have any openings, let me know. I'm interested in everything. Would love to meet you for coffee. Casual again, but you can really make some good contacts that way. And this is all at getting you access to that 80% of the hidden job market that we were talking about. So your own close family members as well, your aunts, your cousins, they work in all kinds of places. Lawyers work there. They hear about law openings. They're all great ways. Former bosses, we talked about the 12% of people who ended up getting hired on. Sorry, but yeah, the same dude is also your dad's friend. Bad clip art. But the reaching out to former bosses and just saying, hey, I just wanted to let you know that I'm job hunting. If there's any openings that you have or you hear of any, let me know. And also, I'd love to be able to use you as a reference sometime in the future. Would that be okay with you? So this just went up on the LCS blog last week. So I don't know if any of you remember Jessica Rose, and she just graduated in May. And she just got a job in January and was so happy about getting a job that she emailed Suzanne and asked if she could write a blog post about it. So, so what happened, here's the sort of main part. She reached out cold to a GGU alum, had a drink with him, and within a week had an interview and had a job. So it really can happen. This isn't sort of pie in the sky, keep your connections open. This is actual stuff. And she reached out to a complete stranger, and just because he was a GGU alum, he was impressed with her, thought she seemed smart, met her, and said, yeah, I'll pass your resume on. Put it on a listserv. It wasn't even that personal. But that 80% of the job market saw her resume and immediately contacted her and said, we'd like to interview you. So it does work. And this was the most interesting part to me, was that job had not been posted on anywhere. They hadn't yet opened it up to the public. The hiring person, I don't know that it was a guy, saw her resume and just went ahead and offered her the job without ever posting it, which is a common thing for employers because it keeps them from having to weed through 100 resumes. If they see one they like and they know that that would work, then they just don't have to deal with going through all the applications. So they much prefer to do it this way, which is why you've got to be tapped into it to take advantage. So the next one is one-on-one informational interviews, like Jessica did. She contacted someone and reached out to them and had an informational one-on-one interview. When you're 1L or 2L and you think about an informational interview, you probably think about going and finding out what is a career in family law like? What does a family lawyer do? Those kinds of questions. By now, you guys have a really good sense of what you want to do career-wise, what kind of place you'd be interested in working. So now you want to focus it on finding someone who does the kind of work you want to do, works in the kind of place where you want to work, and would likely have connections. Either you'd like to work where they work, or they're likely to have connections to people in other places similar who you would like to work for or with. So those are the kinds of things that you want to be looking for in an informational interview. And so some of the questions that you probably want to ask are things like, how did you get into this field? How did you get started when you were finishing up law school? What made them choose that area of law? But also find out about the market conditions in that field. What are the industry trends going on right now in IP law? Or what are employers looking for in hires? The last few people who were hired, what kind of background did they have? Were there particular skills and knowledge that they were looking for? Because that's stuff you could start acquiring now. In your 3L year, you could go to CLEs and other events and get additional information. One of my favorite things is to bring a resume with you to an informational interview. If you attach it and send it to an email, they're never going to open the attachment because they're lawyers, they're busy. I mean, they may, but it's less likely that they're going to take the time to open it sitting at their desk and read your resume. But if you're sitting in front of them and you say, would you mind taking a look at my resume? I'd love to get some feedback from someone who's an attorney working in this field about what I can do to improve it. They have to read it. You're right there looking at them. And this is a way you can brag about yourself. You can, all the good things, you know, all of your grades, all of the sorts that you're in, all of the places you've worked before, all of those things that are hard to just sort of raise in conversation with someone casually are right there. They're going to see everything about you that they'll remember later when they're hearing about an opening. Oh, I know someone who, you know, has a background in that kind of law that would be a perfect match. Let me send you her resume. I have it in my inbox. So it also is a good, you know, they might look at it, oh, I used to go scuba diving, or, you know, I used to work there, I know so-and-so, you know so-and-so, and it's a good way to create new connections. If they have feedback that's valuable, great, you can incorporate it in your resume. If they don't, or you don't like their suggestions, you don't have to take them, but at least you got them to read your resume, and they got to a way to let them see all kinds of stuff about your background that may or may not have been easy to bring up in conversation. You'll definitely be wanting to send a thank you note at the end of your meeting, and so this is a great hook also to add to the thank you note. And also thank you for the feedback you gave me on my resume. I incorporated your suggestions. Maybe you did and maybe you didn't, but it's still a nice thing to thank them for giving you that feedback. You can also find out if there's extra things you can do to make yourself more marketable to the kind of firms that they work for, what kind of professional organizations they recommend that you join, what are they a member of, what are they getting benefit from, recommendations about where you should be looking on your job search. They may have some ideas, they may know where their firm posts jobs. It may be someplace you're not familiar with, it's someplace you can look. And then, the biggest one you can ask is, who else should I be talking to? I've really appreciated this time with you, that you've given me your time. Is there anyone else you can think of who you think I should be talking to now that you have an idea about what my interests are and what I might like to do? So they suggest someone else. So so you've got their little network of who they know that they're going to be kind of keeping an eye out for you for jobs, or can pass on to you. Oh, I just heard about a job. You should talk to so and so. So then you talk to a few more people. Maybe the first one wasn't a great connection. You didn't hit it off. That's set up another interview with a different person completely. That's another way too. And then you're building this network. Each of them knows other people, and you've got this web going. So each of these people you add them to your LinkedIn. You've got them there, then you can look at who their other contacts are on LinkedIn. That's another way to kind of get to other people that you know, to add to your own second-degree contacts on LinkedIn, which is another way that you can look for jobs. So these are all good ways to create contacts, create network, and start to get access to that hidden job market that 80% of the jobs are in. Yeah?
Is there any data if when you're doing these kind of interviews, if it's better to do them more informally, like over lunch or for drinks, or in their office, more?
Generally, we suggest over coffee. Drinks can be touchy.
Well, I meant liquid.
But I mean, drinks will work. I mean, can work too. So Jessica Rosen's blog post that she said she met for drinks at a museum, so it wasn't, but. Yeah, so generally it's a little easier if you're meeting someone outside their office, but if they only can meet in their office, do it. If they don't have time during the day and they can only do it on the phone, great. What time do you commute? Do you drive? Because I could call you during your drive. Then they don't lose a single second out of their day, but you still get the 15 minutes with them. So work with their schedule.
Usually I give them the option to choose, like, you want to meet for lunch or coffee or something like that, and then they can say, like, if they're busy, then you can just come into my office and we can go from there. But yeah, just leave it open.
I'm sorry, I didn't introduce Victoria when we started, and that was completely my bad. I'm so sorry, Victoria. So I don't know if you guys know Victoria Kapinpin. She is a 2013 GTU grad who's working as a graduate fellow in the Law Career Services office. So she passed the July bar and is now looking for full-time work.
I'm doing all this.
So I actually asked her to come today because she is exactly in this place of doing all these things. And so she's going to have, in a minute, some ideas for you guys about stuff that she's learned about trying to transition from her 1L, 2L resume to her post-grad resume and some stuff that she did there. And she's also a good source for asking questions about like the immediate, like what has been happening on her own interviews and her own informational interviews, job interviews, and all that kind of stuff. So she is available for questions too if you have any. So in order to try to make this a lot more accessible and easier for you guys, GGU has just set up this program. We're pretty excited about it. It's called 30-Minute Mentor Program. We have a database, and there's forms I already handed out for you to sign up to join it. We have a database of attorneys who we have already reached out to. We did the reaching out initially. Everyone listed there has already pre-agreed to do a 30-minute informational interview with any student who asks them through this database. So it's, kind of rejection risk-free. They're all already willing and able to do this, to take the time out. And so Victoria has actually been using the database some, so I'm going to have her kind of walk you through just how it works. It's super easy, but it's so cool.
Okay, so the white paper is a registration form, and if you just fill it out and submit it to LCS with Elisa or Suzanne, it will take like 1 or 2 days to process, but after, let's say 2 days, once you sign into your Simplicity portal, there will be a tab on the top called 30-Minute Mentor Program, and you can click on it, and there will be a whole database of all the attorneys that signed up already to do these 30-minute mentor interviews. And so you can do an advanced search of, they have different practice settings, different topics. You can search, most of the attorneys here are GGU alums, but we do open up the program to other attorneys. So you can search different law schools, and then you can also search what college they went to so that you can have some kind of connection or, something to talk about. And then, so here is an example of like the attorney profile. It has their name, their title, their email, and this is all information that they voluntarily gave to be shown on this website. And then it talks about, they have the law school graduation date, and some people voluntarily put their LinkedIn profile, so that's a good way to also see like where they worked and see if you have anything in common with them. And then on the bottom, they also put additional topics they're willing to discuss. And Simone, she put maintaining work-life balance, and that's really good to know because that's an easy topic to start off with. And she already put that she's willing to talk to you about it. So there will be a list that of the attorneys that are in the program, and if you're interested in one, all you have to do is press the interested button, and this window will pop up, and you can send them a direct message through this website, which is really, really easy and better than just sending them a cold email because they get a lot of emails. And doing it through this, it will give you you'll be more likely to get a response because it's through something they volunteered for. So I would take advantage of this. And that's pretty much it. Do you guys have any questions?
I'm sorry, can you go into how we get into this?
Okay, so once you turn in this registration form,
You have to add that bar there afterwards.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Suzanne or I just go into LCS Online and just basically check a box, and it will make this appear. It just may take us a day to get to it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So we'll, as soon as that tab appears, you're good to go. You go in, you make the contacts directly yourself, you set it up with the attorneys and go, and hopefully you have a good experience. And you can do more than one, you're not limited. If the first one, isn't the best match, find someone else who has more info that's more pertinent to you.
And I would take advantage of this now. I wish I did this like when I was a 3L last year, and it's good to just solidify your contacts now before you disappear for the bar exam, so that once you pass the bar, you're not like, what now? So I volunteered a lot throughout law school, and that's how I did my networking. I did not like going to networking events, but I volunteered because you get free, you usually have a free admission, and that's a way for attorneys to see how you work, and you can also network with them. So after I passed the bar, I started contacting all the people that I knew, and I set up an informational interview. And the informational interview is set up for this Wednesday, but he contacted me on Friday and said he has a job lead for a media associate attorney position. So he gave me a contact before I even had the informational interview. So I feel like programs like this is a really good opportunity to set up the dominoes, like Elisa said, like before you take the bar exam, so that you have something after the bar exam. So you're not just like, okay, now what? So,
Cool, thank you. So yeah, Victoria had a job interview yesterday, and we may be losing her. So, in addition to direct sitting down over coffee with one other attorney kind of networking, another kind of networking is to join various bar associations. There's a bar association for everything under the sun. Basically, any subgroup or interest group that you can think of is represented by some group of lawyers somewhere, probably in the state, probably in the Bay Area. So, in particular, if you plan to relocate, if you're going to move to North Carolina or you're going to move to LA, join the bar association there. It will show the employers you're applying to that you're putting down roots in that place, even though your law school history and job history so far has been Bay Area based. It shows that you're really interested in being there, and it shows that you're already starting to make connections in your new place where you're going to be living. So, but yeah, I mean, any of these, there's really no end to them. If there's a particular, if you have a particular personal passion, there's probably a bar association for that. There's anti-gun bar associations where people work in all different practices of law but are all interested in that topic. There's probably a Second Amendment rights gun association if you're on the other side of that. And there's a billion. So, take a little time, research it. We can help you find some too if you're interested. The benefit of joining now and not waiting, there's a couple of things. One is you start to put it on your resume. These are things that lawyers do. These aren't things that 1Ls are really a part of. So this starts to show, this one more way that you're indicating to employers, I'm not a baby lawyer anymore. I'm a real grown-up lawyer. I'm, making connections in my community, in my profession. So it goes on your resume. It's a great, professional affiliations down toward the bottom. Volunteer work, if you end up volunteering, if they do an event, you can put it down as volunteer work. You also get it for free and usually get the food free. And if you're not someone who's great at schmoozing, which I'm not one of those people, if you're at the registration table, every attorney in the entire place has to come to you and tell you their name before they go get their name tag and go sit down. I mean, it's the perfect way to meet everyone there. And then the other coordinators and organizers of it they're seeing that you have this good work ethic, that you're showing up, that you're motivated and involved, and then they're going to remember you as well. Because the coordinators of these are also lawyers. So the other big thing is that it's cheap or free to join as a student. Law student fees, there's a fee to join almost all of these so that they can afford to put on their events and things. When you graduate, they all go up to regular attorneys. Sometimes there's a stepped thing where first or second year attorneys pay a lower amount than attorneys who have been out longer. but they all charge something, and sometimes there's just one attorney rate or student rate. So if you join now, you get to put on your resume and you get the student rate for the first year or so that you're in, and it postpones a little that painful cost. And you could join a whole lot more for free than you can afford to join later if you have to pay for all of them. So, and then the other benefit, when you attend CLEs and other events, whether you've joined as a member or not, if you're just attending on your own, is that, so you get the information of the presenter, it's all, their contact info is written on the materials, you probably introduce yourself to the presenter afterward and thank them for the presentation. But also all the people sitting around you are other attorneys who are interested in the same topic you are. Many of them may have been out for a lot longer than you. The partners have jobs to offer. All attorneys have to get CLE credits, 25 credits every 3 years, 25 hours of credit every 3 years. So that means that they all have to go to these things. And so you're in a room full of attorneys who are all interested in the same kind of law that this topic is about, that presumably you're interested in. So this is a great way to make contacts and see what other firms are represented there. So that tells you which firms you should be looking at who might be hiring attorneys doing the kind of work you want to do. And again, free, often free for students. Like all of the Bar Association of San Francisco events I know are free to students, and they do CLEs all the time. Most of them are free for students. So, going back to this statistics that we talked about earlier, so we said 18 to 23% got posted jobs. So we were talking about keeping in touch with former bosses. That's 12% of job seekers. If we're talking about the connections, just a referral, 35%. And then this is sort of self-referring, reaching directly out. So this is talking to the person sitting next to you at the CLE, or being at the registration table and meeting someone and then later, making a connection with them. This is taking someone out to coffee and it turning into a job. That's 12% of the 2012 grads got their job that way. So this is what we're talking about when we're talking about that hidden market. GGU grads are doing it, and they're doing it successfully, and it's definitely accessible to all of you too. So we'll talk a little bit about your materials now, your application materials. So beyond the networking, once you actually get to the place where you're applying for a job, whether you're applying for a posted job in that 20% column, or you're applying for a job that you heard about through a connection, your materials need to reflect you looking like an attorney. So we've talked a little bit about that, about having organizations that you're a member of down, and also professional affiliations. And so the verbs on your resume are probably going to be the next step to fixing it up. So I'm going to let Victoria show you some examples from her own resume of things that she tweaked that she thinks made a real difference.
Yeah, during law school, I did not really touch my resume a lot. I just added the stuff that the new internships that I had, but after passing the bar, I didn't really know how to change my resume to look more of a new attorney resume, and I found that a lot of my descriptions were not as polished as I would want to present, and I met with Elisa, and she kind of helped me change some of my sentences. And in the resume worksheet, there's a list of verbs that that LCS has put together that would present you in a more...
We like to talk about using action verbs.
Yeah.
Not passive verbs, and not just saying word phrases, but actually, starting every phrase with a strong action word.
And the list in the handout, it divides the verbs in terms of different skills that you can show using those verbs. So before meeting with Elisa, I had one statement. This is just a general one, but I had just underlined the verbs. I coordinated student and attorney volunteers for several clinics, created reference manual for attorneys to use, created marketing materials. So it's kind of I mean, I used created twice. It doesn't really say much about my skills. So after I met with Elisa, it changed to I planned and executed several clinics that shows management skills. Which included recruiting law student and attorney volunteers and client outreach that shows communication skills, creating a manual and design marketing materials that shows creativity skills. So there I already have like 3 different skills I shown just through one sentence. Elisa also brought up to me that a lot of law students in the resume they researched a particular issue, but don't forget to put that you researched and draft maybe a memorandum or motions. Your research should have led to something. I mean, you don't just really just research. So make sure you point that out. I also had some general bookkeeping I did for a law firm, but that changed to computed, classified, and recorded numerical data for financial records. So, I mean, those little things can make a big difference in your resume.
So another huge one that I see a lot is students who say assisted with this or helped draft this. And those are words that students use a lot because they say, well, I didn't write the whole memo, or I didn't write the whole motion. I only wrote the fact section, or I only wrote half the legal section. They asked me to research this topic and I wrote just part of it. So I feel like it's dishonest if I don't say assisted with drafting this. But, I mean, you drafted a good chunk of it. I mean, you can say drafted portions of brief, or you can just say drafted brief, because you did draft the brief. No one is reading your resume and seeing work as a student and assuming that you are writing entire briefs and doing all the discovery alone and all of that. But so you don't need to add assisted with or helped with to make it more honest, because it's completely, you're just talking about work you did. You did draft part of it. You did draft interrogatories, if that's the case, or you did draft a bench memorandum, or if you're working in the court, maybe you wrote part of a judge's opinion. That happens a lot. Law students draft parts of a justice opinion. It's okay to say drafted portions of legal opinions, to make it honest, but helped with and assisted with are not the verbs of an attorney. They're the verbs of a student. So those are big ones to keep an eye out for. So next up is cover letters that we'll focus on. And you can come and talk to me or any of the other LCS counselors about specific resume stuff, and we're happy to review resumes and cover letters and specifics about cover letters, but I wanted to go through a little bit of the general cover letter outline, because it's different. It's different enough that we at LCS had just one handout sheet for cover letters, and I created a second one that's cover letters for graduates, because I think it's so different that the handout that we had didn't do it justice. And so you have a copy of the brand new cover letters for graduates handout with you. But the main thing that's different is that the cover letter what we suggest that 1Ls and 2Ls do is to have an opening paragraph that's just, here I am, this is what I'm applying for, and a closing paragraph that's pretty standard. And then you've got the 2 middle paragraphs. And the first one, for 1Ls and 2Ls, we often encourage them to say why I went to law school, why I'm interested in this area of law, what I want to learn more about when I work for your firm, what, sort of aspirational, a little bit fuzzy, a little bit, this is what I'd like to do in the future kind of thing, which helps fill it out for a 1L or 2L who doesn't have very much legal experience to write about and needs to explain why they're applying to this job. It's a perfect thing. But once you're a 3L or you're graduating, you're a 4L, you're graduating, you want to talk more about what you can offer the employer. As a student, they expect that they'll be teaching you while you're there, that you're going to be on the job learning as well as doing work for them. As an attorney, you're there to, just hit the billables, output, whatever it is that the firm needs. They want to see that you can work for them and that you can start immediately, hit the ground running, and just go with it. So you want to spend both paragraphs talking about what you know and what you can do to further the firm's work. So, I wanted to do away with the paragraph that suggests that you talk about why you went to law school or what you want to learn on the job. So the way that I suggest that you draft a cover letter as someone looking for a full-time legal job is to start with the job description. If you're applying for a job that's posted, then they'll have bullet points that say, here's what we're looking for. If you're applying for a job that you've heard about, that someone's referred for you, you can go online and see what kinds of law they practice, see what they do, read the bios, see what people are talking about there, and get a sense for what it is that they're looking for at that firm. So if they say that they want someone who's got, very strong writing and research skills, that's a really common one, especially for first-year associates. They want some people who can crank out a lot of briefs for them. So you would have that be the topic sentence of your paragraph. Something about how you've acquired a lot of writing and research skills that would help out the firm. And then you give several examples. When I worked at this place, I had the opportunity to draft this brief. When I worked for a judge, I was able to see all the writing and learn a lot about writing and legal writing and brief writing and what works and what doesn't in court. There's a lot of different ways you can approach it. You can talk about school stuff. If you did STEP, you can talk about, when I participated in STEP or HLP, I did this, worked with this client, wrote these briefs. Tons of ways you can do it. So, and then the second paragraph, pick out a different set of skills that they're looking for. Do the same kind of thing. Maybe that one's litigation skills, or maybe it's client contact if it's going to be a direct services nonprofit where there's a lot of people coming in the door looking for help. You can talk about how you have experience when you work here or there. It doesn't even have to be law experience. If you worked someplace, I was working with someone recently who worked at a domestic violence shelter before law school. They had a lot of client contact. They were constantly talking with people who were in crisis and who needed guidance, needed to know what their options were legally and non-legally. And they could apply that directly to working at a place, at a clinic where people are coming in off the street looking for legal help. So, I asked a graduate that I was just working with on her cover letter if she minded if I used it as a sample, and she said that was great. So I don't know if any of you guys know Katja. She graduated last year, and then she was the Baxter Fellow at GGU this year. As a graduate, GGU hires a couple of Baxter Fellows to work with litigation students. So she was one of those this year. And now she's finished that fellowship, she's looking for a job. And so I worked with her on her cover letter of now that she's ready to start applying for law firms. She needed to upgrade her resume and her cover letter. So here's your opening paragraph, which I thought is good for a few reasons. I'm just going to run through this really quickly. She used a name, which is really important. If there's no name on the job that you are applying for, if there's no name within the posting that says who's collecting the resumes, go online, find out, put in the CEO if you need to, put in the executive director, put in the head of HR if you have to, but find someone. It doesn't matter if the person's name there isn't the one who's going to be actually doing the hiring and the interviewing, but show that you've put in enough effort to find someone's name who works for them and put it on your letter. She identified the job she was looking for, that she is a 2013 graduate, so she's saying, I'm not a student anymore. She happens to have a good GPA, so she mentioned it. There's no requirement that you do that. If yours isn't something that you want to be emphasizing, just skip it. She says she passed the 2013 bar exam. That's helpful. That flags to them that she is ready to be an attorney. She actually was still waiting for her moral character at the time she wrote this. So as an aside, if you haven't submitted your moral character, do it now. How long did you say yours took, Victoria?
I did mine in late February, March, so right about now, and I didn't get the results of that until after my bar results in November, like late November.
So it can hold you up. It delays you it delays your swearing in if your moral character isn't approved. So if you haven't sent it out, send it. She also was applying for jobs in a different part of the state, so she wanted to put in why she was applying in San Diego, to help them understand why, that she really intended to move there. She wasn't just blanket sending to everyone. So those are a few things. If you know someone at the firm, if you're applying there because of a referral or some sort of connection, use the person's name in this opening paragraph. Basically this paragraph is to make sure that they keep reading. If they read the first paragraph and don't see anything that really catches their eye, they're done. It doesn't have to be your GPA. That's not what gets a lot of people hired. What gets people hired is that they know how to do the job. They've done it before, they've done something like it before, and they can do it for that place. So put something in that will make sure that they keep reading. Putting that you're, interested, that you were born and raised in the area, or that I'm applying to the job on the recommendation of so-and-so who sent me the posting and asked me to apply. Whatever it is. So moving on. So here's a paragraph where she's doing what I was talking about having a topic sentence that has to do with a particular skill they were looking for. In this case, it was writing and research skills. So she has one topic sentence, and then all the rest of it are examples of her skills at that. So she starts off talking about at-bad. Everybody took at-bad. At least a set percentage of GGU students made the semifinals. You mentioned that if they're looking for writing and research. If that's not your thing, you talk about jobs. She goes on to say, when I worked at the U.S. Attorney's Office, I was involved with this, and then she has a second sentence. My responsibilities included, I did some other things. And then she mentions a third thing. When I was here, I had the opportunity to do this and this, and then she goes on. That's, the perfect kind of way to set it up. I can do this set of skills, and here's proof 1, proof 2, proof 3 of times that I've developed that skill and used it. So another thing that they were looking for at this job was that they gave a lot of cases to their associates at once. So she wanted to show that she could multitask. So she gives an example. When I did this job, I had to multitask. I had to do this, I had to do this, I had to do this. Therefore, you could see that I'd be able to multitask at your firm too. Everybody's looks very different, but everybody's needs to address the things that the employer is looking for. So this is sort of, the new handout is sort of a roadmap for that. Start, work on your own draft, bring it in for an appointment. I'm happy to meet with you and sit down one-on-one, go through it, help you adjust it all. So yeah, that's sort of a thumbnail of the networking, the getting access to the hidden market, and then how do you make your materials and make yourself look like someone who's ready for that market. So yeah, come meet with me and we could talk one-on-one, and maybe you guys have come up with some questions since the last hour. Yeah?
How long do we have access to your office?
Forever.
Our entire lifetime?
Yeah, I talk to people, and I do phone appointments. So I talk to people who live in other parts of the country who went to GGU Law 10 years ago, and they're trying to change jobs or switch gears in their careers, and they call up and say, can you look at my resume? So yeah, you have access forever. You have access to LCS online forever. So those a lot of our job postings, you may have noticed this, say 3 years experience, 5 years experience, 10 years experience, and you're like, how do these even get here? Who are these helping? They're helping those people. So yeah, forever.
I have a weird question. So you were talking about the cover letter and kind of talking yourselves up and whatnot, but does the LCS have anything that helps, I'm just thinking of women who that doesn't come naturally to, where that feels awkward, that like you look and you say, oh, I don't have this skill, so I'm not going to apply for this job, whereas you probably do, and it's just a matter of talking yourself up. Is there something, or is that LCS already has available, like how to overcome that natural tendency to feel like?
That is a natural tendency, and it does apply to women, but it applies to men as well. And so we're happy to meet with you and kind of talk through, what your skills are, help you kind of do a skills inventory. We're happy to meet with you and do that kind of thing, or and that can help you identify the things you are good at that you think you can apply for. I think that's something that women struggle with, but I think it's something that all law students struggle with regardless, is the idea of, I've never done this as an attorney, I'm just a student and feeling nervous and inferior and like not sure if you should be applying for attorney jobs because it's a leap to get from where it feels like a big chasm from where you are to where that seems like. And I will tell you that every firm that hires a brand new associate knows that you have that learning curve to go through. They're not expecting, if they wanted someone who was that far along, they would say, we're only hiring third year associates and above, you know? So if they're hiring straight out of law school associates, they know that you're not coming in, that you're coming in somewhat green. But they also want to see, what do you know? Because that will help them know how close you are to being ready for their firm. And so that's where your cover letter comes in. And so we can work with you to get your cover letter to actually reflect what you know. And sometimes you don't even realize what you know until you're looking at it. So Victoria and I were talking this morning, the list of verbs that's on the resume one, actually we each had the experience of looking at that. I mean, I looked at it when I was a law student, and I looked at it again periodically when I've been ready to change jobs since I've been out of law school about 13 years. And I'll be like, oh, I did that at that job, but I forgot all about it. It wasn't on my resume, but reading the verb made me think, what have I done that? Oh, I have. Yeah, I could totally add that to my resume. And so actually just reading that list of verbs is a great way to kind of help bring to the surface all of the ideas that you have, things that you've done, experiences you've had that you may not be remembering at the time. You know, if you're working in a place right now, if there's some way that you, whatever it works for you, to write down the stuff that you're doing on a day-to-day basis. I worked with someone I was so impressed with. She was a recent grad, and she had a spreadsheet. And like she said, every Friday or every other Friday, she would just write down like that she was working at the city attorney's office. She'd just write down like the project she had been assigned that week and which attorney it was that who was overseeing that. And she just jotted it down. I mean, I think she kept it in the cloud, and it was just on Google Docs, and so no matter where she was, she could access it. And she just threw stuff in there. And then at the end of the year, she could look back and have this great record, not only of all the stuff that she had done, but who could be good references for her based on the work she had done. And if she ever needed to ask them for a reference, she could email and say, hey, I'd like to use you as a reference. You may recall I worked on this for you, and I did this. And it was like an amazing thing that I was like, I wish I had done that. And it can apply now. If you can just jot down now all the stuff, by the time you finish the bar, I guarantee you will not be able to remember your own name, much less what you were working on at your job that you just finished in December, or your job that you're at now, or the volunteer gig that you're going to do over spring break. Just any way that you can jot it down, even if it's just a notebook that you're keeping tossed in your locker, whatever it is, find some way to record that. It will help. Any other questions? Well, I hope this was helpful. Come see me, make an appointment, or see another counselor if I'm not available, since I'm there only half the time. And we're all happy to work with you individually and get you where you need to be. Thanks for coming, you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.